What is normal in your country, but seems weird to the rest of the world? Everyone rags on the US for using imperial, but can we talk for a second about how weird we are here in the UK for using both inconsistently? You buy a pint of milk or beer, but a liter of Coke and 25 milliliters of whiskey. People know how many miles to the gallon their cars get, but you buy fuel at pence per liter. You watch the weather forecast and the temperature is in Celsius, but the wind speed is in miles per hour. Most people can tell you their weight in kilograms, and their height in feet, and if they can't give you kilograms they can probably give you stone instead, which is even older than pounds, which nobody uses as a unit of measurement, probably because of the confusion between lbs and. It's a glorious mess. In the Philippines, it would be people living with their parents. Everybody I know whose parents' homes are in the city choose to live there. With the relatively low wage to cost of living ratio, it is not unusual for married couples to share houses with their in-laws. I work remote, and I still live with my parents, and pay zero rent. Of course, I pay all the bills, feed them and do all the home repairs and chores. Calling mixed race people coloured. I'm from South Africa and I'm coloured, but when I went on holiday in Spain, coloured is a derogatory term, but in South Africa it's completely normal. We have that in Germany. It's not for marriage, especially not arranged marriage, but more for general dating. It's old people Tinder. That was in the US too. I remember browsing those as a child 25 plus years ago to see what people said about themselves. It's also the plot of the classic American song Escape, which is more commonly referred to by its famous chorus phrase, "If you like pina coladas." I went to Finland once after the World Scout Jamboree in 2011. Lovely country. Went to an indoor skiing center under a hotel, which was basically just a loop you could do, but it was weird. You walked into a hotel, went down in the lift and you were suddenly in a room surrounded by snow. Also went to a public swimming pool. It was odd seeing everyone not give a shit walking around naked. Saunas are great though. This was my favorite thing about your country. I sat next to my friend's uncle in her wedding sauna, and it wasn't even weird. Well, maybe a tiny bit weird, but not really. We chatted and sweated. He thought the funny dancing we did at the wedding was weird. Which, given that my friend married a Scotsman and I ended up teaching Sela dances to drunk Finns, he had a point. The best bit was swimming in the lake afterwards. I want to go back to Finland. A short while ago they stopped selling alcohol after 10 p.m. At some stores you couldn't even get non-alcoholic beer. What's weird though is that wine is not considered alcoholic drink, so you can buy it anytime. Welcome to Moldova. Wow. Such gold. Much thanks. In certain US states you can't buy any alcohol in stores after 8 p.m. or on Sundays. Georgia, the US state, just revised the law to allow alcohol purchases in grocery stores only after 12:30 p.m. on Sundays. In restaurants, only after 11 a.m. on Sundays. It used to be not long ago no purchases on Sundays in the state. Heck, even some counties are still dry counties, where you can't buy alcohol at all anytime. Has to be Norway. I have some friends who moved there with their family a few years ago, and the main thing they learned is that bad weather is never an excuse. Kindergarten kids play outside with every weather. They even make bubbles with soap and water, and have foam parties while at it. Det finns ig drligvr. Bad drligklr equals there's no bad weather, just bad clothes. The first rule a Norwegian learn, in addition to at Peter, Aldrisa, which basically means that if you're outside, walking, on a trip, bad mood is impossible/forbidden. This is also the normal thing to do in Denmark. All midday naps are outside in a pram. Same if you are at a cafe. It's quite normal to leave your child outside in their pram, as long as you can see them. Where I lived in Copenhagen, there was a nursery school in the same building. The windows to the room, where the children napped, were just round portholes without glass. It's considered that important for napping babies, to be exposed to the fresh air. There was a great thing, to prevent people crawling in, or out the windows. This was a modern building from this century. My friend would put her baby into her snowsuit and then place the baby in the fleece-lined pram. Then a down blanket, a pram cover, and a hat. She'd then wheel the pram outside in the winter with just the baby's eyes and nose sticking out. Eating with our hands. In 1969, the same year the man landed on the moon, Miss Gloria Diaz coveted the Philippines' first Miss Universe crown. During the preliminary Q&A, she was asked, "Is it true that you Filipinos use your hand when you eat?" To which she replied, "Why do you use your feet?" and went her way to winning the crown. Edit. Removed misleading link. Edit 2. Shout out to Indian commenters who eat with their hands too. And people from other Southeast Asian countries and the Middle East. A mate of mine recently emigrated to England. He phoned me on their first evening out at 11 PM their time. Told me he is in a main road with his phone on speaker and he doesn't feel threatened / scared / fearful of someone mugging him. I don't quite understand how that feels, as since I can remember walking in our main roads is asking to be mugged. He also mentioned that he leaves his front door open for his dog most nights. They only have a small picket fence, no security alarms etc. With our houses, my fiance has made it a thing that we reverse into our driveway and wait in the car, idling, until the automated gate is closed. Once it's closed we get out and go into our house. The motivation behind this is that if someone sneaks in while we are pulling in, we can just put it in gear and the gate, escape in the car. It is our norm, so most people will agree that it's bad, but they do not actually comprehend that it is terrible because they do not know anything else. Not every owned homes get broken into, but every owned home is at risk of being broken into, and most times they get broken into someone dies. But these deterrents just help decrease your chances of being targeted. At the beginning of 2019, my mom and I were held up for 4 hours, whilst 3 to 5 men in balaclavas and guns ransacked our house and used our car as a getaway vehicle. There were 8 threats whilst they had us face down on my bed, our ankles and wrists tied with wire. They had been gathering our patterns for months, waiting for the right time to target us, and came in right before we locked up the house for the night. What we experienced is a cakewalk compared to what can and has happened in South Africa. Pharmaceutical commercials. This could only be the US, right? I'm from the UK, and the idea of adverts for anything but things like over-the-counter cough medicine or other non-essential medication seems absolutely bizarre. Do you go to the doctors and say, "Well, I've heard about this great X medicine and I'd like to try it for my X problem. Can you write me a prescription?" How does it even work? Over here I just tell the doctor my issue and they decide which medication I get, which almost always will be a generic unbranded one. I pay the £9 prescription charge and off I go. US nurse here. Sometimes people will come in and say, "I saw a commercial for X-Med, maybe that would work for me." Then the doctor will explain their ideas for what meds, if any, they think are best for their situation and why. Mostly people are just curious, they rarely are sold on any particular one just from an ad one. Also, the advertised drugs are very often not immediately covered by insurance and tend to be very expensive to the patient. The biggest issue with it is that sometimes people think they may have a certain condition the advertised med will treat because they have symptoms mentioned in the ad. Do you often feel tired, run down, and have stomach pain? Ask your doctor about. Also, the drug company will send salespeople to the doctor's offices to try and convince the doctor to use whatever new medication is coming out. Edit. Word for clarification. It's not arbitrary. There are 2 completely different flushing mechanisms for toilets. There's a type where it dumps the contents of the cistern down a pipe at the back, and the force of it sucks the water out the bowl, and there's a type that dumps water into the bowl directly to force the contents down the pipe. You need a lot more water in the bowl for the first type, which is more common in America, while the second only needs a little and is more common in Europe. There's advantages to both. The American style is quieter, smells less and the toilet needs cleaning less, while the European style doesn't have splashback, clogs far less often and generally doesn't overflow if it does. direct democracy in Switzerland. It often baffles me when I read what the government can pull off in other countries without ever involving the population. Like, yay, you get to elect representatives, but it often seems to me that those people then elect someone who elects someone who elects someone. Is it really still democracy if you're about 5 steps removed from the actual decisions? Edit. I just realized that the reason why so many people made a point about the US being a republic despite me not mentioning it was probably my last part, even though I was primarily thinking about Germany when writing it. The lady doth protest too much, methinks. We've recently decided that, and brought in the world's worst form of direct democracy, in which the votes are treated as though they are supreme and immutable, but don't have any legal power, making everyone annoyed. UK if you can't guess. American coinage doesn't have numbers on it. If you see a €1 coin, it has a 1 on it. Seems reasonable enough. In America, just words. Seems like a mean troll on foreigners that can't read our coins. I know the dead presidents on the coins, so it doesn't bother me, but if I went to another country and they insisted upon making me read to use their money, I would probably be pissed off. Yeah, that was bananas when I was there. I mean, a quarter is quite self-explanatory if you have half a brain. And a penny says 1 cent or something like that. But I had to look up what a dime was, because it's one of the smallest coins. The smallest coin. It just says 1 dime, and I couldn't derive that from any other Latin word, centidi sequent, or Spanish word or a Germanic root, and I don't know any French. So I wasn't sure if it was 5 or 10 cents. In the rush of the moment, usually I just presented cashiers with an open palm full of coins and let them choose the right ones, like an elderly person. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, hit like. If you would like to see more, feel free to subscribe.